It's kind of strange that on the day that I wanted to talk to you about Day of the Dead, it's raining. You know, rain is often used to help show a feeling of sadness in movies and in books. But the Day of the Dead is not supposed to be celebrated with sadness, not mainly anyway. Dia de los Muertos is about remembering your loved ones who have died, and also it's about taking time to laugh in the face of death, in this sense, where you say, "Death, I'm not so scared of you. You don't end everything. The memory of my loved ones lives on with them, and you can't take that away from me." It's also about looking at death as part of life. I know it sounds crazy to say that death is a part of life, but what I mean is, it's the cycle of life. You know, you live, and then eventually you die. And you don't act like it's such a great big surprise when you hear it, although at first it breaks the heart. It's not supposed to be a surprise that it actually is going to happen. Do you see what I mean? So even though the death of a loved one breaks our heart, in this holiday, in that mindset, the idea is to say, well, of course death is going to come. Now, that in itself is not different from every place in the world. But what I want to tell you is that Day of the Dead is often confused with Halloween, and maybe you already know that. On Halloween, we just go out and we get, well, for instance, my wife went out and got this mint pumpkin. Let me see if I like it. Whoa! I like that. When this lesson's over, I'll finish it. So Halloween is about doing spooky things, maybe even going and getting scared somewhere. And there's a little bit of that mixed in with the Mexican Day of the Dead too. But that's not the main thing. What a lot of people do is they set up things in their house, memories like a picture and some of the favorite things of their loved ones, a picture of their loved ones. And maybe they'll set out a favorite food and a favorite drink for them. Maybe they'll even put out a cigar. Some people would think, that sounds so weird. That is wrong. Well, what I want to show you, though, is that a lot of things are very similar to what a lot of other people already do. For instance, many people in this country put out cookies and milk for Santa Claus. I would love to be Santa Claus on Christmas Day. I don't think I've ever heard anyone say, that is so weird and so wrong that you put out cookies and milk for Santa. I mean, I don't even concern myself with that. I love cookies and milk, and that's all the interest I have in that subject. During the Dia de los Muertos holiday, the Mexican Day of the Dead, millions of people in Mexico remember the Angelitos on November 1st. Los Angelitos, or little angels, are the deceased little children. Most of the people do not make a real big deal out of El Dia de los Angelitos. But the next day, November 2nd, things get very excited. It's actually a national festival. The people there celebrate it in different ways because they have lots of very different beliefs about spirits and death and God and life after death. November 2nd is the big day, the real focus. And one of the ways people remember their relatives on that day is by setting out things that make good memories. Here are some grave sites that show how people in this country remember their precious loved ones. I took these pictures just this morning. You can tell the people who decorated the gravestones have happy memories of their deceased loved ones. It also appears to me that some of these people like to talk to their loved ones, not just leave things there. This guy loved animals. You get the idea. People in this country set out memories of their loved ones. If they set the stuff out there where it gets in the way of the lawnmower, the stuff gets removed.
Not everyone decorates grave sites. I, for instance, have never decorated my mother's. And I've only visited the site once. I rarely even think about her gravesite. I just don't think about it. And yet, my many brothers and sisters and I have lots of conversations filled with fun and interesting memories about her. As big a deal as Dia de los Muertos is in Mexico, most immigrants who come here from Mexico do not continue to celebrate it. I recently spoke with a woman in Texas who celebrates the holiday, but she said she doesn't know anyone else who does. Of course, there are others who do. But I too have found that immigrants tend to adopt the U.S. holidays or mix theirs with ours.
One of the things that is very touching, very heartfelt for many people who celebrate this holiday is when they go to the cemetery and visit the gravesite of their loved ones. And sometimes they'll sit there for a while and maybe talk to their loved ones. And maybe they'll bring a little something for their loved one, just set it out there for them, whatever they want to bring. Almost everyone I know who goes to the graveyard to visit their loved ones doesn't mind whispering something to their loved one. Many people believe that when you die, you go to something even better than you had before, no matter how good life was to you. And if you've had a really tough life here, then the idea of moving on past life as we know it here can sound really, really nice. It doesn't have to be so eternally sad while your loved one is gone. You can actually think about them having a better time than anyone could ever have here. You see what I mean? One of the reasons you see so many weird things when you go to a Mexican Day of the Dead is because those things represent the kinds of things people are laughing about when they laugh in the face of death. And when they say, "You don't end all things, death. There is more to this."
Now I want to introduce you to this gentleman that I met along with one of my younger brothers who is also bilingual. We were traveling along the U.S.-Mexican border. That's how close we were. We were right on the border. You can look across the Rio Bravo or Rio Grande River, and we can see Mexico over there. On the other side, there is this big area. It's a desert area, but it can be turned into very productive soil. So anyway, this is where we found him, along the highway out in the middle of nowhere. And he wanted to clean up a cemetery. It was all grown up with trees, shrubs. He said you couldn't even see it. Now, we only spoke Spanish. I don't believe he speaks English. I don't know if he's still alive, to tell you the truth. He was in his early 80s when we met him several years ago. He said this cemetery was covered up. He says you couldn't see it from the road, from the highway. He cut down all the trees that were in the way, small trees that were growing up, and all kinds of shrubs. Well, there's hardly anything there anyway. As you can see, there's not much on the ground. He planted these flowers there. Now look at his bicycle. He uses that to carry the water from a water pipe over to the cemetery. Now we asked him, where do you get this water? And he showed us that people they felt sorry for him. Actually, they were so proud of him because he was working so hard to get water over to these things that were growing. What little was there, he wanted to keep it going every day. And so he went over there every day. He loaded up water that he was carrying from this little town across the highway. Well, these people decided they would put in a water pipe under the road, and so now he didn't have to cross the road and go back into the little town to get the water. He could just go over there and fill it up. But listen, it's a lot of work. Can you imagine filling up all of these milk jugs and these other plastic containers? But he would do this. He wanted to do this. Why? It was his way of respecting people's loved ones. They weren't just his, and I don't even know if he had family there, to tell you the truth. He didn't tell us. You see, dealing with the dead, the deceased, the ones who have gone on, is something that many people consider to be very honorable work. So he spent his time, a lot of his time, willingly carting those containers from that water pipe over to the different grave sites, and he would keep them looking. I'm not going to say it looks good, because if you're not used to living in the desert, it looks like desert there. I mean, it looks like there's hardly a thing there. But it looks a whole lot better than it used to look. And the people who live there know that. And they know that this man has bestowed a great honor on this cemetery and on the memories of these people. And so the state of Texas bestowed a great honor upon him and put up a monument in his name as a way of saying thank you. The Day of the Dead is a holiday that has been commercialized just like Christmas. It's used to make a whole lot of money. Some people have managed to keep it a heartfelt holiday without all of the commercialism. Look up that word, see what it means. The Day of the Dead is not a big deal to most people in the Spanish-speaking world, but there are some things about it that are precious and that actually all of us do relate to.
These pumpkin mints are fantastic.